thank you for coming. I can't believe, and we are really happy that this many people are interested. When we put this together a little while ago, we said, well, I hope this is a project or a topic that people care about, and we know you do, but is it something that you would take a night out to go and learn and listen? And Tom DeGraff here just said what you hear above is applause for you for coming. It's not rain, it's applause for us for being here, so it's a good thing. I'm Cal DeKuyper, I'm the superintendent here in Zeeland, and it's really great to be here. It's a great community. We moved here about 2 months ago. We're renting now, and we're looking to move as soon as we can, and our family is here. It's been incredibly welcoming. It's just a good place. It's a family place. You know, we really have it all here. It's a small town feel where you know everybody, but you have this international flavor in the area, and it has a big city feel too, where you need that. So we really have everything going for us. And if we can really get into all of that, just think where we're going to end up. Safety and security is what we call job one. And sometimes we call it job 1A, because really academic preparation and learning for life is job one also, maybe 1B. So equally important, and I've heard a couple of terms that John uses quite often. Maybe he'll probably talk about that in a little bit. But tonight our goal is really what every parent should know. And what we want to try to accomplish for you is what has happened in this academic world of preparation and test taking and national and state curriculum. And you know, maybe, what do you think it was, team? Maybe a month ago we talked about, should we put this night together? And then all of a sudden everybody said, yeah, we should do this. Let's do it this way, and let's do it this way. And what do people really need to know? And should we try it? And maybe we'll have 3 people, and maybe we'll have 100, and we're getting closer to that 100, and that is a great feeling. So just one compliment for today. ACT results came in a couple of days ago, and I just want to give you a couple of simple things. We have a student who aced it, 36 out of 36. Haven't quite talked to his parents. That gives you a 50% who it might be. I haven't talked to his parents to get that released, but I know we're working on an article, so you're going to see that soon. It's a 36 out of 36 on the ACT. 10 students, 30 and above, and at least 14 more at a 29. That's 10% of that junior class, so it's very strong. And that, I think, speaks to the academic preparation that's here and where we're headed. And if we keep this partnership together of parents and staff and students, and we're working together, those scores are just going to continue to climb. And it's not just about test scores, it's about whatever pathway you take in life. And there are so many pathways, and we all know that today. So whatever that is, that's what this night is all about. So just a chance to say thank you to our team here that's here. John will take care of introductions where that's supposed to be. And I'm going to turn it over to John Voss now, who is the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Personnel. But he's really our leader in this area, and I'm going to turn this over to his night. And just one more chance to say, really, thank you for caring about curriculum and the academic side of what we do. John?
Thanks, Cal. Can you guys hear me okay over the raindrops? We okay back there? Good. My name is John Voss, and I have the longest title in the district, by the way. It's so long, I had to put it all up on the screen there. I have been the principal here at Cityside for the last 9 years, but now I've been given the focus of looking at curriculum and human resources. So as Cal said, we want to really welcome you tonight. We want to thank you for coming out. When we first started talking about this event, we just said, you know, we do events for athletics, people show up in droves. We do events we do a play or a concert, people show up in droves. What if we have a night about curriculum? How many people will show up? It's the first time we've ever done this. So we're happy to have anybody, and we hope that the numbers will grow as we go forward. I'm going to take you through just kind of a brief overview of some things with curriculum, really focusing on how things have changed since we went to school. And I say we because I'm also a parent in the district. I have boys in 8th grade, 6th grade, 2nd grade, and kindergarten. So I'm walking alongside many of you and have a real personal vested interest in how our curriculum is for my own children. So I'm going to do a brief overview, and then we're going to split you up with a little more elementary focus, moving to the cafeteria, and a secondary focus staying in here. And I know some of you would have probably children at both those levels, as I do as well, but there's so many different topics, and the 2 levels are so very different. We felt like we could cover more in less time if we split up. So eventually we'll split you up elementary and secondary. All the presentations tonight are being recorded, and they'll all wind up on the website afterwards. So if you can't go to both places, you'll be able to watch the presentation, the other one, when you're done. Anytime you have questions, feel free to ask, but in the second group, when we're a little smaller, it might be a little better to have questions. We've got a lot of principals here tonight who really are the curriculum leaders. You know, I have this title, but this is really a group effort to lead curriculum for the whole district, and we're all here to answer your questions. So I started thinking about, what do we want you to know? We're so glad you came out. And I thought, you know, what things we want to talk to them about? The biggest thing is how the world has changed. When we were in school, what we went through and what we experienced is different than what kids are going through today because the world is changing. There's a great video on YouTube called Did You Know? And I didn't actually show it because it's been changed like 36 different times. There's all these different versions of Did You Know? It's kind of a cool story. Did You Know started as a presentation at a staff meeting in a high school in Colorado. And then somebody put it on the web, and it literally went viral. And it's been changed lots of times and updated. I think the first time we did it was like 2005. And it was about how the world was changing. And now, that, you know, if you go on now, you can find one for 2013. But there's some amazing statistics that I think are important to start with. And just some of the highlights from the Did You Know video. They talk about it in there. China and India have more honor students than the United States have students. You know, we have to prepare our kids for the global society that they're entering. If Facebook were a country, it now is up to the point where it'd be the third largest country in the world. Online life is a reality that our students are going to face. The U.S. Department of Labor predicts that students today will have 10 to 14 different jobs by the time they're 38 years old. Top 10, the 10 most in-demand jobs in 2010 didn't even exist in 2004. And the last one is my favorite, and I say this one all the time. I did as a principal, and I continue to say it in my new role now. The truth is, we're preparing students in our classes today for jobs that do not currently exist, where they will use technology that hasn't been invented yet to combat problems that we don't even know exist yet. That's the reality of what we have to prepare our kids for today. And that's not just the kindergartners. I think even our high school students, and for sure our middle school students, are headed into a world that we just don't even know what it will be like 8 years from now. As I went to prepare for this, you know, I thought when we were in school, it was largely still the paradigm that if you did well in school, you could probably get a job in a local factory. You could wind up at Gentex or Herman Miller or Hayworth, make a good living, probably have enough to have a boat or something like that, and be very comfortable and do well. That's not really the reality our kids are facing anymore. You know, it's changing. What was curriculum like when we were in school? When most of us were in school, the curriculum probably was a teacher was handed a textbook, maybe, and said, teach this. Those teachers probably were almost all allowed to make decisions individually as to what do they want to teach. You may have all different, many of you probably had that social studies teacher who loved the Civil War, so he spent 8 weeks on different battles of the Civil War. I know I was guilty. My first year of teaching, I had a wonderful Native American history unit that was like 8 weeks long, and it had all these different things of different tribes and Native American culture, and it was wonderful. But was that what my kids needed to know about for the world of the 21st century? I'm not sure. So the last 20 years, we've moved from curriculum that really was based on textbooks and personal preferences of teachers, where they were teaching what they liked, basically, to we began to have some standards and benchmarks. Then we had grade level content expectations in K-8 and high school content expectations in 9-12. By the way, we're going to get a whole lot of jargon and terms tonight. We actually have a glossary for you that at the end we're going to pass out that has kind of all these different terms and initials and acronyms on it so you can get a sense of what some of these things are. Now we have the Common Core today. So what we really have seen is you had a movement in terms of what's going to be taught from a decision made by the individual teacher to a decision made by a school district to then being made by the state. And now with the Common Core, we're beginning to say at a national level, a group of national educators coming together and saying, this is what we believe should be taught. And in the end, I believe the more people you put together, the more good minds you get going together, the better the product is going to be in the end. And with a more and more mobile society, we're getting students from not only other cities, other counties, but other states all the time. Ideally, someone coming to Zeeland from Florida, Alaska, California, we hope they've had a very, very similar experience to what our kids have had. Otherwise, they're going to waste some time or they're going to lose some things as they make that change. So there's really been a shift. We no longer, when it comes to curriculum, talk about what should we teach. It's really now about how will we teach it. The state originally and now the Common Core is telling us what we will teach. When I first started teaching, my first class was world geography. And I basically was told, teach the 7 continents. And that's about all the guidance I had. I mean, that's incredible, huge, the whole world, basically. What am I going to teach out of that? So we're getting clearer and clearer for teachers of what you should be teaching, which I think is a good thing. Excuse me. So as a district, our discussion becomes more these 4 questions. First, what do we want students to know? What's out there as the formal curriculum? How will we know if they learned it? We're going to test them a little bit. Some of it is just the art of teaching, teachers talking to students, the quick thumbs up, thumbs down, did they get it, that sort of thing. We look at the results, and then we have to ask ourselves, what will we do if they don't get it? Because some aren't going to get it. And the question we can never forget is, what are we going to do if they already know it? We can't go too slow for the best kids in class, just like we can't go too fast for the lowest kids in class. It's a challenge, but it's one that we can meet. The other thing we look at when we look at curriculum now are the terms vertical and horizontal alignment. Well, what do those mean? Vertical alignment talks about looking at what's happening with curriculum as you move, and this graphic shows 6th through 12th grade, but really it's kindergarten through 12th grade. You should be able to look at a step-by-step building block, starting with what my kindergarten student is doing when it comes to reading and writing and math, and build towards what they do then in first, towards second, towards third, all the way up that leads into what we're going to do at the high school. Those are the conversations that we're having now. We want to avoid as much as possible. We probably have all been there when we were in school. When you sit there and go, I did this last year. Or we read this same book 2 years ago. We need to have those conversations to make sure that the experience is planned out K through 12. The other part of that is horizontal alignment. What we want to try to have happen, and this isn't perfect yet, this is something we're working towards, but the goal is that the experience should be as similar as possible in different classrooms across the district. Whether you're in a 7th grade socialized classroom here at Cityside of teacher A, 7th grade socialized classroom of teacher B, or one of the two teachers over at Creekside, that experience should be as close to similar as possible. Now, there's going to be some personality differences. There's going to be some small structural differences, but we don't want kids having vastly different experiences. At the elementary, at 2nd grade level, there's 16, I believe, 16 or 17 2nd grade classrooms in the district. A 2nd grader should have a very, very similar experience, whether they're at Quincy or Adams or New Groningen. That's horizontal alignment. So that's something we're working towards as well. One of the tools we've used to make this happen is what we call the Monday meetings. And this is something that's new this year. And I'll back up a little bit here for you. When it comes to curriculum development, it's something we used to do in the summertime. We used to do it every couple summers. English might meet once every 4 years, every 5 years, maybe every 6, to look at their curriculum. The world's changing too fast now. We can't wait 5 years to look at changing our math curriculum. The state's making changes almost every year. Same true in all the different areas. So we've moved to, as a district, as every Monday, after school for an hour, teachers are getting together, they're talking, they're collaborating, they're working on the curriculum. Again, now it's not what are we teaching, because the state tells us what we're teaching. It's how are you teaching it. And we're moving towards having conversations about what's working for you. Well, how come your kids really understood that well, mine didn't? How can we share ideas? How can we work together? And that's been a really powerful piece. And I share it with you because it does make for some inconveniences. If your kids have sports, Monday practices are either canceled or they start later, that sort of thing. Play practice might be pushed back. But we really think this hour spent every Monday working on curriculum is very, very important. Publicly here, I want to thank the ZEA, our Zeeland Education Association, the teachers have come alongside. This isn't something that I came in and said, we're going to do this and you have to do it. Teachers have been on board with us. They've worked with us. Obviously, there's some bumps in the road with working with that, but we've figured out the bumps as we've gone along. And a theme you'll hear me say over and over again is, while I may have the title of curriculum director or leader of curriculum or whatever it is they call me, curriculum leadership is a group effort. It's the principals, it's myself, it's Cal, but it's also all kinds of teacher leaders. I did a presentation for the school board a couple weeks ago, and we recognized all of our teacher leaders. There are over 60 different teachers who are in paid leadership positions of one type or another, leading a grade group, leading a department, that sort of thing. Those folks are very, very important. We have tons of dedicated staff who basically say, just give me the time, give me the resources, and we'll figure this out. We'll get the best possible curriculum for our students, which I think is great. If you want to see more about what we're going to teach, or what is taught at each level, and I think a lot of parents may not even realize this, we have a pretty thorough website found at zps.org/curriculum, where you can find the documents, you can find the links to what's being taught, a little bit more on how it's going to be taught as well, but you can check that out on your own time. If nothing else, I want to spend the time I have left this evening talking about two terms you probably heard a lot about in the news and on TV and that sort of thing, and that's Common Core and Smarter Balanced. You probably have seen those. We want to make sure you understand what is that. Those two things have really changed how we teach in the last couple years. We're not sure as parents you're even entirely aware of what these things really are. I hinted at it a little bit earlier. Common Core is basically a move towards a national curriculum. It goes back to No Child Left Behind. At the request of the National Governors Association, there basically was a movement to say, let's get something that's uniform nationwide, ideally. Come up with quality curriculum, take the ideas from all different states, and come up with one common curriculum. As of the last I checked, I believe we're at currently 48 states that have approved the Common Core as their curriculum. Now think about it, you try to get 4 people together and decide what kind of pizza to order, that can be tricky. So getting 48 states kind of on board with being okay with how we're going to teach algebra or how we're going to teach 3rd grade reading has been a challenge. But what it's now done is we have more commonality. There are some deeper thinking skills. You know, we've really been excited and have worked hard the last couple of years to move our curriculum from what we've been doing to the Common Core. A lot of it didn't have to change, but some things did have to change. Common Core really focuses on literacy skills, meaning reading, writing, speaking, and listening, not just in English class. Oh my goodness, shock the students. You might have to read, speak, listen, and write in math class, or social studies, or technology, science class, that kind of thing. So Common Core is a national curriculum that Michigan has adopted along with 48 other states that now directs what we will teach. We now focus on how will we teach it. The other thing you've heard a lot about is Smarter Balanced, sometimes abbreviated as SBAC or SBAC. What is that? Well, once we had a Common Core, the next question became, we have to find a way to assess students on this. You know, there'll have to be tests to see how students are doing learning the Common Core. And, you know, partly for economic reasons, you have 2 different groups that are kind of vying to be the group that will be the official assessment group that will test Common Core nationwide. One is called the Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortium, SBAC. The other one is called PARC. You see the abbreviation there. They're split about 50-50 nationwide. Michigan has been a Smarter Balanced test state. We're going to be doing Smarter Balanced, it looks like, starting in 2014-15. So this will replace the MEAP test. We've been doing MEAP for a while now. Smarter Balanced will come along not next fall, but the following school year, and that will replace the MEAP test. MEAP will be gone after next year. So the question becomes, well, how are they alike? How are they different? What is Smarter Balanced? What we know is MEAP. Our kids take MEAP in October every year. How is Smarter Balanced different from MEAP? If I try to strip everything away and simplify it as best as we can, there's 4 major differences, all of which I think are making it a better test. First of all, Smarter Balanced is going to be given online as opposed to paper and pencil tests. I think that it's a challenge for us to make sure we have the right technology, but for the most part, I think that adds to students' motivation. The challenge there is that starting in 3rd grade, students are going to be tested online, so now we have to make sure that as 1st and 2nd graders, they're exposed to enough technology that they're ready to take a test like this that has fairly significant, impact on them online. Smarter Balanced will have what they're calling interim assessments. In other words, as a district, we can give pre-tests, practice tests, checks for understanding throughout the year before we get to the final Smarter Balanced test in the spring that are all related so we can see how students are doing. Huge improvement. MEAP test kids take in October. It's a one-time deal. We don't get the results back for several months usually. And while we can create some assessments that tell us if the kids are ready for MEAP or not, it's not the same because it's not designed by the same people that make the tests. So this idea of interim assessments is something as educators that we're excited about because it allows us to see if kids are ready, make adjustments on the fly, that sort of thing. Smarter Balanced test is adaptive. That means that the test adjusts to the person who takes it. If you had a middle school student in the last couple of years, they may have been taking the MEAP test. The MEAP test was also an adaptive test, meaning every 7th grader on the math test, for example, starts with a 7th grade question, but as they start doing better and better, they get to harder and harder questions. If they struggle, they get to easier and easier questions. The goal on an adaptive test is to reach the level where a student can do about half the questions. So the really bright student isn't going to be bored and buzz through this in 10 minutes because it's going to take them to levels of stuff where they will eventually fail. One of the funniest things when we did MAP in the middle school was watching some of our best math students just struggle and reach levels of stuff. They're trying to do calculus, and we're like, you guys, you haven't learned this yet. It's okay if you don't know it, but they weren't the kind of kids that were going to just accept that they didn't know it. They were going to plug away at it and try to figure it out. Same thing at the other end, though. We have students that are very frustrated by the MEAP test because it is over their head. They're not ready for it. And so an adaptive test will adjust and get to a level that is more appropriate for that student, which is a good thing. In addition, the Smarter Balance is going to have The big formal educational terms are constructed response, extended response, performance tests. In other words, essays, writing sections, and not just be bubbles only, multiple choice only, which obviously promotes higher level thinking if you're doing that versus bubbling in multiple choice. The other thing that's not up here that I thought of just as I'm speaking is because the test is online, we'll be able to get results for Smarter Balance much faster, where MEAP test results come back. Test is in October, typically get the results in January, if we're lucky. Smarter Balance will get them within a matter of days, which makes a huge difference then as well. I lost my nifty remote here just a minute. There we go. Now, if you've been following the news, there has been stories about where some have been saying maybe we shouldn't do Common Core, maybe we shouldn't do Smarter Balance, and I wanted to address that just briefly. There's some legitimate concerns. Why is that? The two most common arguments I've heard, one is that the Common Core doesn't address 21st century skills quite enough. You know, the level of technology and thinking skills required of our students isn't in that test as well as it could be. Probably a fair concern. However, you know, I'm not sure you're ever going to have a test that's going to perfectly measure 21st century skills as we bring it up to date. You know, 2 years from now, there'll be some new skills that they're not ready for yet. So there's a part of me that says you're never going to be perfect in that realm. The other concern you get is people just arguing it really becomes a states' rights versus federal government issue, with people saying should some sort of national group tell us how to run our schools at a state level? Shouldn't they be a state level decision? My counter to that would be the state's chosen to do Common Core. You know, we're not being told to do it. We want to put the best minds together and come up with the best curriculum possible. So that's sort of our argument. And the other argument we've made is teachers have spent a ton of time on this. In the end, all these curriculums are pretty similar. What we did at a state level is pretty similar to the Common Core. We don't want to throw the whole thing over and start over again. Teachers talk a lot about the moving targets that we're asking them to aim at. They've spent the last couple years working hard to aim at the Common Core and be ready for that, and we don't want to make them change again. I had to laugh. They asked me for a quote in the paper, and I gave a very eloquent quote about how the importance of educational consistency and all that, and my quote said, it's good stuff. The Common Core is good stuff, but it is good stuff. I mean, I think there's good stuff in there for our students. Didn't make me look the smartest, but that's okay. What I've said, what I've argued is this, and what I'll leave you with is this. And a group of us were sitting around a few years ago doing an exercise, and we were looking at belief statements and mission statements and value statements and that sort of thing. This is 2-3 years ago now. And it's sort of just kind of a fun exercise. Someone said, can you sum up the vision, the mission, what Zeeland Public Schools should be about in 3 words? And there was a group of us at a table. And what we came down to was this. Zeeland's talked for a long time the importance of safe, valued, and loved. We at least say that behind the scenes a lot. We're about safe, valued, and loved. We want kids to be safe, valued, and loved. And that's tremendously important. That's what made Zeeland successful. That's what's made Zeeland a place where I'm glad that my own kids go. But the other side of that is you can't just do safe, valued, and loved and not also talk about academic excellence. And also push our kids to do the best they can and be as ready as possible for the 21st century world that they're going into. The word rigor could be used there. So what it comes down to is this. What I've argued is those two things aren't mutually exclusive. Today in 2013, we can't say that we are safe, valued, and loved, but we're not challenging our students. And we can't say that we're all about challenge and rigor, but we don't care about safe, valued, and loved. It's both. So in our little exercise, when we had to sum it up in 3 words, we said valued plus challenged equals successful. And that's what I believe for our students. That's what I believe for my own children. I think we do it when it comes to everything from athletics to academics to getting my son to do his homework without being reminded every night and all the things that we all go through. We want them to be loved and valued and feel like they're important and cared for, but we also need to challenge them, and then they're going to be successful. So that's sort of my approach to what curriculum should be all about. That's a very quick 30,000-foot view of what curriculum in Zeeland is all about. What we're going to do at this point is we're going to split you up, as I said earlier. If you want to hear more about elementary curriculum for about half hour, 45 minutes or so, we're going to move you to the cafeteria, which is right next door. If you go out the doors here, take a left, the very next section there, we've got all our elementary principals here. We're going to talk specifically about the elementary curriculum issues for half hour, 45 minutes. If you want to hear more about secondary issues, 6th grade through 12th grade, we'd ask you to stay here. Mark Van Soos and a couple others are going to speak more about some issues that are facing secondary students. As I said earlier, Because you might very well have students at both levels and you can't go both places, we're going to put each presentation up on the website when we're done. We just felt like this would allow us to cover more area that was specific to that parent. And then we'll have questions. I mean, certainly I can take questions as we transfer here, but I think it would make more sense to do our question and answer time in smaller groups after we split up here. We'll definitely have time for that as we're done.